Just a local liberal nerd, but Netflix just released a season each of two of my favorite anthology series, Black Mirror and Love, Death, and Robots. And they kind of just flew under the radar, becoming specks of salt in the sea of online content.
I do want to acknowledge, however, that Black Mirror did get number 3 on the Nielsen charts. However, I'm discussing more broader online cultural impact. And this is across all of its episodes, across all of its seasons, not just counting season 7.
On the other hand, HBO recently released season 3 of their anthology-esque series, White Lotus. And it has felt like, at least, it's the talk of the town. SNL sketch, content everywhere, everyone in my life, my mom, some of my uncles who I don't know what they watch, but it seems like they barely watch anything. That's the thing they come and talk to me about. My friends, it's just that is the show that just osmosisly has come up the most in conversation. I'm starting a teaching credential program in the fall. And in order to do that, I had to take some prerequisite classes online. New TV, books, art is what kept me sane. They were my built-in breaks from the humdrum of work, homework, attempting to write a book, all that. So watching and engaging with these 3 shows, it feels outside of quality, which I'll get to in a second. There was one major reason why I think there was such a rift in reception between these shows. Release model. In the case of White Lotus, it was released week to week, like traditionally TV has been released most of its existence until Netflix came along and introduced the binge model, where we just kind of drop the whole show at once and leave it to you to watch at your leisure. Black Mirror and Love, Death, and Robots were no exception to this. All of them just being dropped at once, and that was that. I believe that week-to-week releases of TV have been the standard for so long for a reason, and I'm personally really glad it seems to be kind of shifting more back towards that direction, or at least a split between binging and week-to-week releases, and even some kind of middle ground with kind of chapters or arcs released every so often, like for shows like Andor or Arcane. The U-Wing, hopefully it'll pop up on camera, but the Lego U-Wing I got up here as a little reward for myself for getting through the classes. I built it while watching the Gorman arc for Andor. If you haven't seen Andor yet, please do. I won't disturb it. Amazing television, some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. And being able to build the ship in that arc while I'm watching it and taking all in was a really magical experience for me. And at the end, that's why we love art, is because of that magic and that experience and that escape it can give us. And just being able to enjoy ourselves and really just melt away into what we're seeing. And being able to do it once a week spread over a period of time where I've got a solid month in a hard year where I'm able to just decompress and see this, or over the period of a few months rather than over a couple of days, you know? But I genuinely seem to be in the minority opinion here based on people I checked in with and conversation I looked at online. Binge model is definitely the preferred option. So in my attempting to understand that binge model, I kind of at least talk about why I feel the way I do about week-to-week television and why the binge model failed some of my favorite shows. One important similarity between White Lotus, Black Mirror, and Love, Death, and Robots I wanted to discuss is that they all had about the same amount of marketing push, which was not much. They each just got about one trailer on YouTube. Maybe in the case of White Lotus, you got some billboards here and there and some ads. And then they just kind of came out, and that was that. The world did with them what they did with them. However, in the case of White Lotus, it kind of built its marketing week to week as it released. People got excited for the mystery, who's gonna die at the end, your thoughts. Why are these siblings definitely going to be incestuous at one point? I called it, and I thought, I really shouldn't be happy that I called that, but I did. In addition to that, you also got weekly releases of podcasts, online content breakdowns, discussions. It helped build and cultivate that fan base, and it was okay for people to hop on if they wanted that binge model partway through. They'd hear it through word of mouth. All of it kind of leading to this communal moment in the finale, which again, I feel at least is re-emphasized by that SNL sketch that got over 1 million views. Yes, say what you will about how you feel about SNL, but for a lot of people, it does really matter. And having it be that kind of cultural touchstone, and also again, in regards to the SNL sketch, I'll have Editing Max say it because I can't remember the names or the specifics at this point in time, but yes. Editor Max here to translate. I meant the controversy surrounding the impersonation of Amy Lou Wood and the exaggeration of her teeth that I thought was in poor taste and soured a solid amount of that sketch for me. Additionally, I realized as I was editing through this that I give my general opinions on the Black Mirror and Love, Death, and Robots season, but I don't really give my opinion for White Lotus season 3, which I think is important in order to elaborate some of my points later. So I'm going to give that now. As for White Lotus season 3, it was personally my least favorite season of White Lotus, with season 2 being my favorite and season 1 following after that. And a lot of my dislike is not the right word, but a lot of what left the kind of sourer taste or less good feeling taste in my mouth in the end of White Lotus season 3 was the ending, specifically the last few minutes and Rick's ultimate choice in regards to the ending. So, and that seemed to be very divisive for a lot of people, that moment and that ending part of the season, specifically for a lot of people. So, I feel that if White Lotus season 3 were released all at once, I feel the overall image of that show and the ending and the conversation would be different. I don't think it would have had the wind beneath its wings it had during its week-to-week runtime versus if it all dropped at the end and that ending of the series or the ending of the season rather than the ending of each individual episode would be the capstone of conversation. Yes. Additionally, while I have you here, I want to add on for Black Mirror later. I talk about a couple episodes in particular of note. I wanted to add that I forget the name. I think the Memento-based episode was also of merit and really good. Okay, back to regularly scheduled programming. It's still an indicator of something it got focused on and talked about where Black Mirror and Love, Death, and Robots didn't. Because they didn't get that weekly discussion, content week by week, all that. You know, you kind of have like one large video talking about all of it or a video talking about like one or two of the episodes. Like in the case of Black Mirror, all of the conversation has surrounded the episode Common People, which I understand why. It is the most Black Mirror has felt in a very long while, at least since like season 5, so the past couple seasons. I personally loved that episode. I understand that it definitely has a lot of flaws, but at the end of the day, it made me feel something that show hasn't made me feel in a while. And it excited me. But there are 5 other episodes that no one's really talked about, particularly the USS Callister sequel episode, which I think was really good. I know there was a lot of nervousness going into it, will be good, we're getting a sequel episode, but I thought it was really good, and I'm just not seeing any discussion about it anywhere. And I think if Black Mirror released in that week-to-week model, maybe building up to that, or just being able to discuss each episode holistically each week, I think it might have gotten a bit more traction. Which sucks, because it takes years upon years for these shows to release new seasons, Love, Death, and Robots included, and I'll get to Love, Death, and Robots in a second. And I feel at least, again, regardless of how you feel, I think it's important at least that for the work that gets put into these, whether they're good or bad, they should be enjoyed across a period of time rather than consumed, thought about for a second, and then just kind of chucked out the window from your sense of memory and consciousness for the next however many years. In the rare case for those really strong pieces of art, they do stick. But I feel that the week-to-week model allows it to better stick. However, I can probably hear you commenting or thinking now, but Max, wait, there's stuff on the Netflix streaming model that works with binging. Think about Squid Game and Stranger Things. Each of those respective shows had a massive cultural impact when they released and were relevant for months, in the case for a lot of them, years on end after their release between seasons. And you would be correct. However, the gap between those two shows' first seasons releasing was what? 5, 6, maybe 7 years? I don't know, Max can correct me. But that's a long time for out of the hundreds of shows Netflix has those are the big, major cultural hits out of all the catalogs that they get, where at least feels with other streaming platforms and their shows, there is a much lower bar for reaching that cultural relevancy because it's released a lot more over time rather than all at once, because again, there isn't that wider discussion. Now going back over to Love, Death, and Robots for a second, because there is an important point on Love, Death, and Robots I want to discuss that makes it different from the other two shows I've discussed so far. And that's mainly, it wasn't all that good, which I think is even more detrimental for the binge model. Again, there was a lot of discussion in regards to Black Mirror, that first episode for Common People. Love, Death, and Robots' first episode for that season was a glorified Red Hot Chili Peppers video. And I from what little I've seen, that's just a general sticking point of why did you start the season with this? And I agree. Why? Why did you start it didn't set a good tone going into the rest of the season. And yeah, the rest of the season kind of marked that. And if you've never heard of Love, Death, and Robots before, at the very least, if you take nothing else away from this in this conversation, please go watch Jabaro. It's the season 3 finale. Again, it doesn't matter. You don't need anything else. Please go watch it. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. It is the epitome of what this show can be, and it's what season 4 wasn't. Again, this is all my opinion. I want to emphasize that all my thoughts and all that, it's just my opinion on the art. Even before looking at the discussion, just going into this season blind, I didn't really feel much. Instead of the art of previous seasons, it just kind of felt like another wave of content. And it took less than an hour for me to watch. Actually, no, probably, I don't know how long. Editing Max will probably put how long the season was later.
Editing Max here, sorry if there's a lawnmower in the background. It adds up to around 116 minutes for season 4, or a little under 2 hours. But one thing I did want to note when I was double checking the times for this episode on Netflix, the order of the episodes got moved around. For example, the Red Hot Chili Peppers music video episode that was originally the start of the season was moved to the end, among other things. So yeah, I just think that that's interesting. It seems that maybe they're taking feedback on the episode order, but yeah, that wild.
But like less than a couple hours, I just kind of digested it all and was like, eh. And that's how years of work put in there. Oh, hi. Hi, Esper. My cat's coming in. She decided to make her camera debut. What do you need? All right, back to Love, Death, and Robots. Another aspect of the marketing for Love, Death, and Robots I wanted to discuss is that it really seems from the perspective of the showrunner, compared to other seasons, they really wanted to expand the audience. And I feel that that was to the show's detriment. It really emphasized all the different celebrities they had and all these cool things we're having them in, but the quality of the stories weren't all that great. It accomplished the opposite of expanding to a broader audience because it had half the viewership of the 3rd season. Especially in regards to like marketing some of the fumbles by that, or like how week-to-week release could have helped. They had Mr. Beast for one of the episodes, which for a lot of people, myself included, did however you feel about him. I'll put it up, but it very much was just animated Mr. Beast, but with none of, I don't know whether he's just not a great voice actor or the direction wasn't great, but I understand some of the appeal, at least for his content for some people, of that, like the energy in regards to the pitching stuff and the putting, like, I can see that was nowhere present in this particular character. I know this has nothing to do with different streaming models, but still, that's something I wanted to just discuss and vent out into the world. As you can tell, I'm not using a script with this due to all of the classwork and stuff I'm doing. I haven't had time to finish my newest script, but I wanted to at least get something out, make a discussion, test this new kind of set thing. But yeah, it very much felt like it was Mr. Beast light, to where just the life was which is interesting because it seemed Mr. Beast offered to be on the show. It was because at least the showrunner said like they couldn't afford Mr. Beast appearance money. He just liked the show and showed up. And it felt like that kind of and again, that seems a bit rude. And obviously this is my opinion at the end of things. If you enjoyed it, great. But you'd think, and again, I just did cursory Google search. Editing Max will correct me if I missed something. For Mr. Beast's audience, and that's in part why they wanted, like, oh, he has such a wide reach, it didn't seem like there'd be anything coming out on his end of like, oh, I'm doing this thing, or that there was a bunch of Mr. Beast people watching it. That didn't really seem to be the case because it was mixed in with everything else. Again, even the episode he's in, they make a proud thing of featuring Mr. Beast, but like, I don't know. Again, maybe if it had its own week, it could have its own discussion. Probably wouldn't be a particularly constructive or good one, but it'd have its own discussion more or less, rather than just kind of being thrown with everything else, all the other celebrity appearances, and the music video episode. All this to say, even in the case of Love, Death, and Robots that had a mediocre season, I feel that a week-to-week model would have better serviced it in regards to reaching a wider audience. And what sucks is that it hasn't been renewed yet, so there is a solid chance it just goes away, which I hope it doesn't. I hope this is just a learning experience. However, I don't think the solution is what it seems currently be rumored for the last season for Stranger Things, where they release an arc and then wait months and then another arc. That is also something I want to clarify. Like mid-season breaks, the 4-month break Invincible had for season 2, just general, that is not a good way of doing it. I don't think. That's too far in the opposite direction of waiting time between things and savoring the work. There's that balance between savoring the work and milking the product for subscription money. Because I also fully acknowledge that wanting to push more for week to week, and also part of why we're seeing more week to week outside of cultural discussion and relevance, it is money. It's a capitalistic argument, because the wider they stretch out these things, the more you are paying in subscription costs because streaming services. So I also get that from that aspect. I also understand it's pro-consumer to have everything at once. You can watch it how and when you want, and you're really only paying for the 1 month. And that's a perfectly valid argument. However, I think you can still have that with the week-to-week model. It's just you binge it all at the end. But I also understand that you can get the spoilers beforehand if you're waiting for the end for everything to come out. But regardless, I think regardless of what model becomes prevalent, there's always going to be issues with spoilers in the internet age, unless you make the choice to take yourself completely offline to avoid spoilers, which isn't always feasible or realistic for people. I also feel that there's this general impatience when it comes to things and content instant gratification of there's something rewarding in being able to think and guess and watch and savor and have something live in my head over the course of a week rather than just it existing and me forgetting about it. I think that's one of the beauties of TV and how it comes out that week to week instead of just you get the thing and that's it. You get to kind of experience over a long period of time with other people, talk to them about it, experience it within the comfort of your own home in a variety of different ways. You can build a Lego during it. You could not. You could do other things, right? And all while savoring or enhancing your own artistic experience with it. And I really do think that we are losing something in the binge model of television where it's all just kind of there for you, especially in the case of a lot of these shows get canceled after one season anyway. So I also think at least the binge model doesn't really give these shows time to breathe and live and see how they exist in the ecosystem of entertainment before they're snuffed out, versus I think week to week gives it a more genuine opportunity to see how it resounds with people and how it builds off of people and whether it's worth that excitement to continue. Because at the end of the day, I think what we gained with convenience for binge television and the freedom of being able to engage with it whenever and however we want to, I feel like we also lost that connect in that shared cultural moment as we're all experiencing it at once. Because people can go at such wildly different paces for binge that no one's really connected on that same level in that regard. There's not necessarily a connected conversation. It's just all of it at once, which can be really overwhelming. And as a result, a lot of the smaller, juicier moments get kind of overlooked. This seemed interesting to you. Let me know again if you enjoy this kind of more yap-at format with kind of green screen in the background. If you prefer kind of some of the other stuff I've been doing where I have a lot more scripted and I kind of use the general effects and it's just more kind of putting on stuff like that. A mix of these. Also just whether the fact that this isn't comic books, and I know comic book seems to be what is engaged with the most. If you'd rather I stick to comics, if you'd rather I try other nerdy things like this, I have a couple Magic the Gathering video ideas I'd love to talk about. But also, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, because I know I just kind of stated my opinion as is, I stated some counter arguments. If there, again, part of in which why I'm doing this is because I feel like I'm missing a portion of what the appeal of binge television is. So please feel free to enlighten me if you just think I'm dumb, or if you'd like to give me a respectful rebuttal. Those are always nice. I do try and read the comments, so I'd love to learn and improve and maybe change my perspective and mind, but this is how I feel right now. That's all I got. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.